The price of white South Sea cultured pearl can vary per strand by thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of dollars per strand. And what might seem like somewhat similar looking strands, if you understand how to look at the quality nuance difference between white South Sea cultured pearl strands. Let's start first with size. The Australians tend to begin at about 11 millimeter in size. Other locations may go down to about 8 millimeter in size. So the size range from 8 to 11 millimeter is a much lower price point. Like you jump again from 13 to 15 millimeter, and once you get over 15 millimeters, it goes up tremendously in price, with some pearls reaching 20 millimeters in size. Cultured pearl strands for South Sea cultured pearls often come graduated with smaller to larger pearls. So you may have strands that graduate from 8 to 12 millimeters, graduate from 11 to 13, from 13 to 15, from 15 to 17. This makes a tremendous difference in the price of those strands, depending on what size range category they're in and the jump between those different size range categories. With South Sea cultured pearls, it is not as common to get that perfectly round shape that you do with the Japanese or Vietnamese or Chinese Okoya saltwater cultured pearls. So if you get a very round shape on a strand of pearls, this can increase the price a great deal on South Sea cultured pearls. But other shapes can be very, very valuable also, even though the perfectly rounds tend to be the most. And when they get slightly off round, they drop in price considerably. Other different shapes are usually lower than the rounds, except a beautiful drop shape. Oh, if you get a beautiful drop shape, these can sell for more money than even perfect round pearls. So the shape comes into play, but baroque shapes that have sold traditionally at the least cost are becoming more in demand, and the price for baroque shapes are going up. Shape, another consideration. Color. South Sea cultured pearls. They're generally white, they can be silverish, they can be cream colored, white, or kind of what they call a silvery white. Those are the finest body colors. If you have a very consistent white or silvery white color, that is highly desirable. That will be more than, say, a little bit of a yellowish tint, making a little bit of a cream color. But the beautiful thing with pearls is it's not just a body color. You can have what's called overtone color. That is kind of a color superimposed on that white body color. Now, with the overtone color, it's commonly green or pink with white South Sea cultured pearls, or you can have the two together or more colors, and that's orient. So overtone color, when desirable, and orient, that can increase the value of the pearls instead of just a plain white body color. But in my opinion, what makes a pearl is the nacre. The secretions by the oyster is the luster. Pearl luster is different than any other gem material. It is unique, and it really distinguishes a pearl. It is just beautiful. Luster is the quality factor that the professionals, that the connoisseurs use when they're judging difference in quality. The highest luster of an Okoya cultured pearl will be higher than the highest luster of a South Sea cultured pearl, but the two can overlap. Which one is better? That's personal taste. But when a laboratory grades South Sea cultured pearls, they do it against South Sea cultured pearl luster master strand. So you grade type compared to type, and a higher luster, that can bring a much higher price. And how do you notice that luster? You'll see it. Once you compare different qualities of luster, you can spot it immediately. One thing I like to look at, if I'm looking at it under a fluorescent light, like in a laboratory, a professional, about 12 to 18 inches under that light, I look at the quality of the reflection of that fluorescent light tube. The higher the quality of the luster, the sharper that reflection of the light tube looks. But you'll see it in the brightness of that luster from the nacre of that pearl. That is what is really special about a pearl, and that's what the professionals look at. Now, the surface condition of a pearl, what some people call blemishes or surface characteristics, look at it at the proper distance. Professionals usually about 12 inches right in there. Look at how visible any of those surface characteristics, cracks or bumps, look at how visible they are. If they're not visible at the distance you would normally be talking to someone and admiring their strand of pearls, if they're not that visible at what a laboratory would look at them under grading conditions, I wouldn't put so much importance on the surface characteristics. I would go much more with the luster. That is really what's important. Another factor that's considered is the nacre thickness. With a saltwater cultured pearl, they usually use a mother of pearl shell round bead. And then the oyster does his part, kind of like teamwork. He secretes the nacre around it. Not all cultured pearl types typically have the same nacre thickness. The Australians usually have over 1 millimeter, sometimes 2 to 3 millimeter nacre thickness. The Akoyas, a good nacre thickness is to have about 0.5 millimeter to 0.8 millimeter nacre thickness. For an Australian South Sea cultured pearl, I would not expect to see that type of nacre thickness. I would expect to see it over 1 millimeter, maybe even over 2 millimeters. Nacre thickness, if it's too thin, if it's like around 0.10 or 0.15, could possibly affect the luster. But the luster is more determined by the quality of the nacre, how tight that nacre structure is. That usually determines the quality of the luster. So don't get caught up on nacre thickness if it's in a good range for the pearl type you're looking at. These differences sometimes may seem subtle, but they can make tremendous difference in price. And remember, price point is one thing, value is another. The price versus the demand and rarity and the value of that material.